Blau und weiß ein Leben lang. Hallo meine Leute. Willkommen zum das einzige Schalke Podcast auf English. That's right, folks. Officially the world's only English Schalke podcast. This is episode 110 of SchalkeMerica, and I'm your host, Richard Kharman. Joining me on the show, as always, is the sultry voice of my co-host, Jack Mangan. How are we doing, Jack?
Well, as usual, I guess we should say, because it's been a couple weeks since I joined you.
Yeah.
But nice to be back with you, sir. And if I'm being honest, probably pretty nice to have a little brief stint away from Schalke on the pitch for a bit, if I'm being totally upfront.
Absolutely. I agree. I couldn't agree more. You need a little bit of that break. A lot of chaos has gone on in the last month. But so we're here to we got a little winter pause, so we're going to do a little review of the season thus far. And because of that, we're going to bring in some help. First, we're going to bring on someone who's been on the show more recent. We're talking about last week here. Bring in Cedric Zelmat, the Schalke YouTuber. Cedric, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hello, guys. Hello, my friends. I'm happy to talk about Schalke again.
Well, glad to have you back once again, helping filling in the void for Jack last week. So we thank you for having you once more time. But we're not stopping there. We're bringing back an old friend, an old American outlaw, that is Mr. Dave Lee. How are we doing, Dave?
Hey, what's up, Cedric, Jack, Richard? It's good to be back. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. Hope everyone had a good holidays. Obviously, it's the holiday season here. Hopefully, you gentlemen have had a nice, quiet time so far.
Yeah, it's been nice and relaxing. As I mentioned to you guys a little pre-show, I've been binging the Star Wars movies in chronological order. So my winter holiday is pretty much booked up with that. But yeah, all things aside, it's been pretty good out here.
Good.
Germany, it's good too. I spend a lot of time with my family, and I'm very happy to have the time with my family.
Jack, you're back in Chicagoland?
Yeah, finally. I've been up in Northwest Wisconsin basically since early September. So finally back home. Feels a little bit weird, but ready to just in time for like January Chicago winter. I don't know why I chose this particular moment to come back. Not the best, but the holidays were calling me home. What can I say?
That's right. I see that nice blue and white flag right behind you there. We haven't seen that in a while, so it's good to see that back. It's been a crazy season so far. A lot of news in December going back and forth with Schalke. But some news that broke today, we kind of knew was coming. We weren't sure. It was the names are up in the air. Were between Alexander Zorniga and Christian Gross. Well, today officially Schalke did announce that Christian Gross would take over for Schalke. In a press conference today, he did make some comments that he made that he says, we have to be goal-oriented and work towards results. I want to feel the players' enthusiasm at all times. We need to have a good atmosphere in and around the team to be successful again. I will give everything so that the team can accomplish our goals together. Gentlemen, this is an interesting hire. Many people were curious about, first of all the options that were available. There weren't many that were, decidedly favorites for Schalke fans. We're going to go around the room here about your initial thoughts of hearing Christian Gross as being the new manager. Dave, we'll start with you here.
I guess when it comes down to some of these European managers that are still floating out there, I wasn't surprised, especially with the connection that we know he has with some of the executives here at Schalke. I mean, just looking back at his history, I for one, was not too familiar with Christian Gross. It's some name that, being relatively new to the football scene, that I wasn't overly familiar with. So, but looking at the teams he's managed and that long stint at Basel from 1999 to 2009, where he did obviously win at a top level in that Swiss league, and he's coached at the Bundesliga as well. With Stuttgart, and I think that's where the connection comes. But it'll be interesting. I don't know much about his tactics or how he deploys his players, but what I've seen reading on Twitter with some of the top analysts says that he's a taskmaster, that he's dedicated to at least, his contract is at least dedicated to the end of this league. So hopefully he can sort of right this ship, get the players emotionally and mentally in the right space. But it's from an outsider perspective, not knowing much about him as regarding his character, it seems like a decent hire. He obviously has plenty of experience at the top level with some of the clubs and teams he has managed over the last few years.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, because for certain he's not someone that it was high on my radar. Cedric, how about you? Did you have some familiarity with him already?
Yeah, I heard the name when he was the coach in Stuttgart, but when it comes again, I'm also not familiar with him. I think he has a good stations at the Spurs and at Stuttgart. He rescues them from going to the Division 2, and he has a great career. He has a lot of titles in the Swiss football, but now he's 10 years out of the European football, and that is because of that I'm a bit scared of him as a coach.
Yeah, Jack, this is an interesting hire because, as Cedric mentioned, he hasn't been in European football for 10 years. He's been with most recently the European or the powerhouses of Ali of Saudi Arabia and Zamalek of Egypt. What were your thoughts when you heard about Christian Gross's signing?
Yeah, the last time this guy was coaching in Germany, we didn't have, broadcast rights to the extent that we do in America here. Yeah, it's been the better part of a decade since he was in European football, as you all said. I mean, you hear the comments he makes. We need to be result oriented, goal oriented. Well, there you go, problem solved. I mean, like, wow. I mean, really. I mean, I'm not trying to. I'm becoming increasingly, as I've said on the podcast recently, as time goes on, I'm increasingly convinced that this is less of an issue with coaching and more of an issue just with whatever the atmosphere is in this specific team makeup and this specific grouping of players. And maybe Christian Gross will prove me wrong, and I hope he does, but I'm getting to the point where I don't think we're going to see significant change until we see a significant portion of the squad moved elsewhere with a lot of new blood in, potentially some changes to the hierarchy of the club, and then actually get like a coach that's going to be here long term and try to implement something. So to the extent that he has a reputation of a little bit of a taskmaster, maybe like a Felix Magath kind of guy, I mean, is that what the club needs right now? I mean, given I understand, like, you really want them to work and you want them to put a shift in, and I understand that, but given how fragile the psychology is, I don't know if we need somebody who's going to be like a hard driver, negative, like, overly tough. I think you need to try to improve the atmosphere there a little bit and encourage players more in a positive way. I mean, who knows what the actual solution is, but I do have some concerns about it. So, and then I guess the last thing I would say is I don't think it was the right decision to get rid of Manuel Baum yet, at least. I understand the results hadn't turned around necessarily, but I think we would all agree that there were some things to hold on to from the performance. And like I said, I'd rather have a guy that's been coaching in Germany more recently. No disrespect to Egypt and Saudi Arabia, but I mean, those are the only coaching credits on this guy's resume over the past 6-7 years. So, how am I supposed to feel about it? That's the question. Is this supposed to be like the savior moment? Like, finally, how is this supposed to give me, more hope than we've had recently? I'm not sure that it does.
Yeah, that's some good points there, Jack. And I think the big thing is, for me, it's the idea, given that I don't know Christian Gross that very much, but you guys bring up valid points about being so far distant from, playing in these top leagues around Europe, is that he only signed to the end of the season. And I think that's a very telling sign of where the club is, where the executives are. Is, yeah, Manuel Baum, he had a 2-year contract. He was working on it. And maybe the results weren't as they should have been. Again, we've all followed clubs where the crop of players just run, their clock runs out for a club. And now it's time to sort of rotate. And I know the financial situation is very dire, but at the same time, having somebody who's only going to be there for 6 months, we know what purpose that serves, and I don't know if that serves for the greater good of the football club.
Yeah, it's an interesting point there. I mean, the contract does run until the end of the season. Obviously, lots of speculations before he was hired about the names that are possible there. The two main ones, like we said, was Christian Gross and Alexander Zorniger. Two different-minded coaches. One is more attack-oriented, trying to get the offense, not necessarily play defense. And Jack, as you mentioned, Christian Gross is more of someone who's a tactician or a disciplinarian or a taskmaster, tries to get guys on the right foot. He had, I guess, between the two, he does have the advantage in that he, with both the Spurs, to Cedric's point, and Stuttgart, he saved them from relegation, and I think that's what we need at the moment. And also to your point, Jack, it's
let's just bring Sam Allardyce in then.
Oh yeah, I think did he just take a job? He just took a job.
He's taken now. Yeah,
but that's the only requirement.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's
well, Sam probably hasn't worked for Stuttgart at some point, so that means he's off of Schneider's.
He's probably been in Europe more recently, though.
Probably, but
That's a very good point. But some other names that people wanted, that we keep hearing, Tedesco is obviously a name that's been floated around. Many Schalke fans still are in love with him. And as much as people would want him, he's got a contract with Spartak until at the end of the year. And that's been confirmed by Spartak this season. Now, who knows what happens then? Does he even want to come back? We don't know. But I think part of that, the contract going until the end of the season, is because we made the mistake the last two managers that we gave him 2-year contracts, and now we still paying David Wagner, we're still paying Baum for what? Sitting at home and playing, watching TV. I mean, this, like you said, the problems are probably not from the coaching perspective and not from the players at the moment, but we need to dig ourselves out of the hole. And I think the number one goal, as kind of what Gross was saying in the press conference, is we need to fight off relegation. We need to get some wins, and I think if we can get our first win, we can hopefully break that voodoo curse that we've had for 2020. We can win in the Pokal, but we can't seem to win in the league. It wouldn't be something. I saw a tweet that someone said, like, wouldn't it be something if we don't win again in the league, but we win the Pokal? That'd be interesting, but I don't want to be in that situation. Didn't an English team do that recently? I forget who it was. They won the BPL, one of the cup games, and then they got relegated that same season. Swansea or somebody maybe, but that's beside the point. So. Interesting take with Gross. I agree with Jack about Baum probably getting let go a little too early. Cedric, do you think Baum was unfairly dismissed, or do you think it was time for them to move on and find the new manager like they did?
I think after the long period of Wagner, I think it would be fair to give him at least the Bielefeld game, and maybe makes a change in the break of the winter. But I mean, normally he has to win against Mainz, Stuttgart, or Augsburg. These are games to win in our situation, and he hasn't received it. So I can understand it, but I have, in my opinion, I give him the game against Bielefeld at least.
Yeah, I think we were all in agreement that, well, at least Jack and I, we were thinking he was going to get the run through these, games where he should have won. I mean, we made the change with Hoop Stevens, and it didn't result in a win, did it? Dave, it just seemed like, if anything, that game against Bielefeld, we almost took a slight step backwards, I thought, from watching that match. I don't know what you thought seeing that game compared to the previous ones in the round.
Yeah, given that the change happened, 48 hours before the match even happened? I mean, honestly, are you putting the club, let alone the players, in a position to be successful with that short of turnaround? Yes, we know the history that Stevens has with the club and what he's been able to do, but at the same time, it's a different time, it's a different crop of players, and I just don't think that move did anything for the club. Like you said, it just didn't feel like anything was going to change for one game. So not to say that Baum would have made a difference, I'm not sure, because we do have a history of runs there. But at the same time, I don't understand why you couldn't have left him on for at least another 48 hours and made that change afterwards if that's necessary. I just don't think as Jack's sort of alluded to here, is that some of the decisions at the executive level have not helped out this club. And I think this is another one that just kind of another nail in the coffin, is to maybe some change a little bit higher up needs to start happening.
I don't want to be too much of a stickler for it, because we're really just talking about, a game here or a game there, which is kind of arbitrary, the timeline. But I guess I would just feel a little bit better about it if Baum had been given the entire preseason and those first couple games, they just kind of let him go through, until we hit the mini Winterpause. And then at that point, you'd say, like, okay. But, by the time he came in, we were in the worst form we had been in up to that point. And, so a significant portion of his early tenure was probably just trying to steady the ship. And I just feel like maybe he could have gotten a couple more games. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, results aren't changing. So what does it really matter that much ultimately?
Yeah, we saw the same thing with when Baum came in. He got a couple days, if that, again, before the Leipzig match. So, it was interesting before the two matches that Hoop Stevens had under his belt. He said that he felt that with those two games, he kind of knew what kind of manager that the team needed so they would be successful. I wonder if he had, his say to get Christian Gross in there. I mean, I'm sure he was one of the leading men there, obviously with the Stuttgart connection with Schneider and Gross. But the comments made by Schneider, by Hoop Stevens was interesting and almost telling. That he said, I think I need someone who's a disciplinarian, a taskmaster type guy, someone similar to him, I think, Cedric, and they brought in Christian Gross, who's not too dissimilar. I mean, hopefully he is someone that can get the best out of these guys no matter what. Yeah, it's going to be difficult no matter what.
What do you guys think about this term? And I think we've brought it up a couple of times, and it seems to be a thing with our club, the term discipline. And it's we've seen some players that have been fined, suspended, some indefinite movement, all these things. But do you think that the team actually needs that discipline, or do you think it's as you had just shown on a YouTube comment that there's something systematically wrong with this team? Is discipline the issue? Is it more of a motivational thing? Is it a tactical thing? What is the true root cause of everything going on? Because as you see, discipline has been an issue, but I don't know if a disciplinarian is going to be able to fix that problem. Just the thought, I just keep hearing that term as far as discipline. Let's fix that. I don't know if that's truly the route we should be taking, if that's really the cause.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we'd certainly have some disciplinary issues, like we've talked about many times. I mean, Harib, Nabil Bentaleb, and so on and so forth. But I'm with you. I don't know if necessary disciplinarian is what we need. I kind of like the vibe that Baum was giving us. Cedric, what about you? Do you think a disciplinarian is what we need, or you need someone who has more positivity?
I think we are not a team at the moment, and I'm not sure how we can fix it. Maybe with discipline, maybe with a better atmosphere, with a positive thinking. I don't know, but I'm sure that there is something missing in the puzzle, where the atmosphere in the team has to change in a better way.
Yeah, no, for sure. Jack, how about you? You feel the same way?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for discipline, and certainly there have been some high-profile incidences of players maybe going AWOL at times, and also if you're watching the games, you're seeing a lack of tactical discipline at times, or emotional discipline at times from certain players on the pitch. But I mean, I think to some extent, there's a lot of people that are getting tired with, like, we just need to be more disciplined. We just need to get that hardworking mentality back in the team. I mean, those things are all great, and it's important that that's kind of like a core part of the ethos of the club. But at some point, you need a little bit of quality. You need some ideas going forward as well. I mean, it's fine to be disciplined and to work hard, but if you have nothing to show for it beyond that, you're not going to win games. And we just haven't had enough in so many different areas of the pitch that, I mean, that's one thing that could improve the team, but there's 5 other things that can improve the team as well. I mean, the problems are just far too numerous and far too deep at this point.
Yeah, and you talk about quality, and we have a couple guys who have a lot of quality, Serdar and Harit, but they've been playing below expectations as well, and that doesn't help anything. When we can't score goals, it's not going to help anything whatsoever. So, yeah, this season, it started off very, very difficult for us. Obviously, that freaking 8-0 thumping at the hands of Bayern, and then gave up another 3 goals in the next game against Wolfsburg or whatever. So it started out very poorly. Obviously, Wagner gets let go. Do you think our spirit was broken before the season even began, or do you think it just something that happened this season? I mean, obviously, we didn't get any wins at the end of last season, but the way we started the season, 8-0 to Bayern. Yeah, Bayern's a great team, but 8 goals. I'm like, really? Like, we had a whole offseason. We had an offseason to plan for Bayern. We know what Bayern bring, and we couldn't stop them whatsoever. And I get the quality disparaging, but it should not have started that way. I mean, what do you guys think?
But I mean, I don't want to put too much weight on preseason games either, but if you look at what was happening in the Testspiels, like, those were horrible performances as well, by and large. That was not a team that was sort of regrouping and getting things back together
against small clubs too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is not a team that was, Wagner was turning things around and trying to, get them going again. It very much looked like they'd already bailed on him as a coach, and we're just not jiving with whatever he was trying to do at the time. So, I don't think it was something that happened at the beginning of the season. I think it was just a carryover from what had been going on last year.
I think that Wagner lost the team after the Corona break, and after that you give him the preseason, and I think we are the one team with a bad preseason against teams from the Regionalliga or under it, and we have the baddest preseason in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, Dave. The way we've ended last year, the way we went to the preseason, it seemed like it was inevitable that the 8-0 game was going to happen.
Yeah, you never want an 8-0 to happen. I've been on the other side where I've had a team lost 9-0. I've also been part of a club that beat somebody 8-0, you know? So it's either way you look at it, it's not comfortable to sit at. You would think that being professional athletes that they can sort of have a short-term memory and sort of move on from something like that. But if a poor season that was relayed over into a poor preseason, which resulted in a very bad first match for the entire season to kick off, I think that regardless of how strong psychologically or mentally you may be or emotionally, that's going to do some damage for you. And if you don't have a manager or staff in place to make sure that doesn't linger, that doesn't sort of fester and continue to build and infect a club, obviously we've seen sort of the fallout from that, and they weren't able to recover, you know, and we haven't been able to see it. And again, I will shadow what Jack was saying, where at some point you have to have some quality to make up for an 8-0 defeat quite like that. But I don't think we were surprised by what Bayern was able to bring. I've just been pretty surprised by what our team hasn't been able to sort of develop and bring over the last 14 matches. And to me, I think that's the most telling. There's something fragile, there's something broken with this psyche of this team. And an 8-0 win, an 8-0 defeat, it doesn't matter. It's a story now that's following this club, and obviously we're starting to set records with it.
Yeah, and we knew it was going to be difficult from the beginning. We saw that gauntlet. That, you know, we played 3 of the top 5 teams in the first 5 games, and you know, Werder Bremen was our second game. We lost that. Union Berlin's a tough team as it is, so we knew it was going to be difficult. But the psyche of the team, which we've heard numerous times during Baum's short time here, he kept saying that the team is fragile, and we, you know, any little thing can just set them over the edge. And I saw one of the comments that maybe there's like some cheating going on in the background or this and that, and all that can contribute to. We've seen, you know, in other leagues and around the world that, you know, that sometimes something small like that can make manifest and get worse and worse. But it's something systematically, I think, that's ultimately getting through. Yeah, there's probably things here and there, little niggling things here and there, but ultimately it's something that's through the club, through and through, that's wrong. It's not just the players. I think these are good players. Just something's going on, you know, for each of them, and they're all playing poor, and the mental state is really bad at the moment. But yeah, the run of games that we had, we didn't seem competitive at all. Certainly not under David Wagner. And then Manuel Baum came in, hoping to kind of correct the discipline a little bit. We saw the game against Stuttgart, a decent result after obviously tough games against Leipzig and the game against Dortmund obviously is never going to be a good one, but we had some games where we thought we could have done so much better. Obviously, Mainz games is the one that comes to the mind. Stuttgart, we played fairly decent in that game. The one place that we can still win, which there's no wins in the Bundesliga in 2020, but the Pokal is the area that we have done decently. Yes, we've been playing some lower league teams, but at least the team is finding ways to win. As hard as it is, Cedric, it seems like we are still finding ways, which is still even more confusing. We know we obviously can still score goals, but we're not doing it in the Bundesliga.
For me, we have problems. We have also a quality problem too. For me, the left back and the right back aren't on the niveau for the Bundesliga. After the injury of Paciencia, we haven't, and the suspension of Ibisevic, we haven't a striker for the box, and because of that, we can't have the level to win against better teams and against the teams like Mainz or Stuttgart. It's a bit of luck. We are the same level like them at the moment, but when you haven't the luck, for example, in the Mainz game with the referee, then you play remis or lost games. So for me, it's also a quality problem. But when you are on this bad situation like we are now, you have always things that come together, and after all the things, it's very hard to find a way out.
Yeah, Jack, it seems like one of the few bright spots in terms of quality that we've had this year. Obviously, the goalkeeper, Frederick Nove, who we got on loan. And Mark Uth is also another one who's been playing, I guess, better than the rest. He's shown some glimpses for us that gave us a chance at some potential goals. Outside of that, though, not many quality opportunities from our players just through and through, it seems like.
Yeah, and hopefully Mark Uth is healthy and fit and ready to go basically right from the jump in the rook round. I don't know if we have a timetable yet for his return, but he's somebody that I shouted out when I went on Talking Foosball last week, whenever that was, just because he's somebody I've been critical of in the past on this podcast many times. I don't think he had been particularly good for us in the past prior to his loan to Cologne last season. But he's one of the guys that I think has been a leader both vocally and by example in terms of what he's doing on the pitch this season, and somebody who seems to actually care about what's going down and is deeply affected by it, and and wants to turn things around. So yeah, I think Mark Uth's certainly been a bright spot. I think some of the Knappenschmiede products getting some time is a bright spot, but I think ultimately we're probably relying on them a little bit too much, and that just underscores the lack of quality that we actually do have in the squad. But yeah, it's hard to point to that many things to really hold on to or to be excited about as we head into the break here. We're going to need some massive changes in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, then that's so true. And like you said, Jack, we've been almost over-reliant on the Knappenschmiede this year so far. Real quick around the room, who do you think's been the best Knappenschmiede player so far that you've seen? Dave, let's start with you first. Who do you think has played the best so far for you out of the youngsters?
Let's see. Going down the youngsters list here. Let's go. Trying to see which name kind of pops off the page right here. It's again, it kind of to Jack's point there. It's just we've been limited. We've been relying so much on our our older, more veteran, talented players.
I've been pleasantly surprised by Malik Thiaw. I didn't expect a lot of him, and I think he's played much better in terms of the center backs. He's been one of the more consistent ones, I think, compared to the natural starters for us. He was surprised, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, what, 6 appearances so far? 1 as a sub. He had that nice little diving header that made for a really nice goal. I mean, in general, like you guys have talked about previously, I'd say our left and right backs are not Bundesliga per se quality at this point. Again, they're filling the voids. They're doing what they need to. I do believe that he's been able to at least make some Thiaw at least make some really good connections along the side he's playing on. But he hasn't been a pleasant surprise. You can tell that he may be a moldable player where he can sort of play that center back. He can play the right back position or left back. I'm sorry. But yeah, he's definitely been a standout. I think him just getting more playing time has been able to kind of establish himself there, where a lot of the other youngsters have just limited appearances, in terms of subs and things. So I do like Malik as a really quality player that we've seen, that is at least filling a position as someone that at least the managing and the club and fans, supporters can kind of rely on, that he's just going to be there week in, week out.
Yeah, you're still going to hear Joel Matip 2.0 with Malik Thiaw here. So,
right.
Cedric, how about you? What Knappenschmiede player you think has played better than expected for you?
For me, it's Gorillap. I think he's developed very much, maybe at the last 5 games. Yeah. And now he's, for me, a player who has to stay in the 11, starting 11. And he's a player, he's very aggressive, he runs a lot, and for me he's at the moment a better option than Schöpf, for example.
Yeah, that's a good shot right there. Jack, how about you? You're on mute.
I think I've done that at least once every podcast in the past couple months. I think Gorillap is a good shout, although he's probably not my favorite of the products that we do see. I just think in terms of how many opportunities he's gotten, he's just been on the field a little bit more and has flashed a little bit. I do think my overall answer is probably Malik Thiaw. I do think he has one of the higher ceilings potentially. Still very young and kind of being thrown into the fire in the midst of a defense that is struggling, to say the least, at the moment. But as Dave already said, potentially a little bit versatile, and I might talk about that later when we talk about our ideal starting 11. But obviously I'd like to say Katuchu or something like that, but I don't think he's gotten enough minutes to really even be in contention. And I don't know if Bozdogan has either. He hasn't featured as much as I kind of expected him to. But yeah, so I guess that's what I would say. But I hope we do see some more of those guys, because a couple of the guys I would like to see are the guys that haven't been giving the opportunities overall.
This year has obviously been a difficult year overall for us. This is probably the worst year well, definitely the worst year I can remember. I'm sure it's probably along the lines for all of you guys. This is going to be difficult. Was there a best match for you this season? Obviously, we didn't win anything, but any game that you thought we played well and we should have won, or something like that. It's gonna be hard. We haven't won anything. Jack, I'll go back to you first.
Yeah, I think I would have to go with the Mainz game. I think that was an away game at Mainz, the 2-2. Both of their goals were penalties, and I think the first one was that Matija Nasic one that I think was kind of sketchy. I thought that it was very a 50-50 kind of contact thing. But yeah, I thought we looked better overall. I think that's when Mark Uth had that free kick, potentially. That may have been that game. And we scored a couple goals in that game as well, which is, I think one of them may be an own goal. But anyway, it's unusual that we see Schalke with 2 goals on the score sheet. And given the goals that we conceded, could have been one and probably should have been one where we should have picked up our first win of the season. But as a spectacle, a lot of drama, a lot of twists and turns in that one. So that's what I would go for the best match.
Dirk Diggler says, we beat Powerhouse Ulm. Yeah, that's his best game there. Cedric, how about you? What's your if there was a best match for you, what would it be?
For me, it's last match in the DFB Pokal because we win it, and we saw there 3 goals and a very good goal from Serda. I know it's just a team from the Regional League, but we haven't so much to be happy in this year, so it's a good result at the end before Christmas.
If anything, it shows that we would win that league if we were in that league. No, I'm just kidding. Dave, how about you? Is there a match for you that you would classify as the best match?
Can we go with the 5-1 friendly win over Paderborn?
Was on fire in that match. Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at the schedule and trying to think back memory wise, and it's like, okay, we saw some offensive threat. We saw at least a good collective, a common mindset there. But I will shadow what Jack was saying with the Mainz game. It seemed like things were rolling our way. We did have some chemistry. Things were orchestrating, working out. Yeah, it was a blow to get that draw, but it's probably the best collective unit that we've seen overall from a 90-minute performance. And I think that's what I'm trying to look for in the best match. It's an overall, what do we have that we can point to over a 90 minutes that says this is what we're capable of in terms of the season? And that was probably it. But I'd like to go with the 5-1, but that's, friendlies are here and there, but yeah, I think
we'll take all we can get this year.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I guess if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick that after we lost the Riviera Derby, we played Stuttgart. Malik Thiaw got that goal, the header that Dave mentioned earlier, got that goal, got the lead in that game against a team who was in the top 5 at that point. And then they ended up getting a penalty and ended up being 1-1. But I thought that was a decent result, decent comeback after a shithouse performance against Dortmund. So, yeah, that's my best that's best match. But if you had to pick, this is probably be easier for, I think, because one jumps to my head right away. Most disappointing match this season. Cedric, I'll start with you. How about you?
For me, it's a Mainz match because I think we were clearly the better team, but for me, the referee with his decisions destroys the match, and because of that, it was a very frustrated game, and I cry a lot after that game.
No, we won't fault you for that. That was a difficult game, especially with the refereeing. Dave, how about you?
I thought that Augsburg match was pretty hard to kind of come back from and listen to check out. I mean, 90 plus 3 for that goal, and it seemed like we were on a good streak within that game, and we were playing a man up. The red card. I don't remember exactly what at what point Niederlechner had picked up, maybe early in the second half, 55 minute or something like that. But that was just disappointing overall. I mean, we know what happened during that game and sort of the potential that would have hopefully shifted this club. But at the same time, we saw a lot of yellow cards dealt out. We saw a late last minute goal, and it's just the situation around there with what was happening on the sidelines and sort of the emotional toll that had taken. That was a pretty tough and disappointing match.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a gut punch for sure. Jack, how about you?
I mean, there's so many you could choose
All
from.
of them?
I mean, Cedric said the Mainz match, which I think you could easily say, even though I said that was like my most exciting match or whatever, I think you could say it was a disappointing one as well. I like the Augsburg shout just because, you know, if you're up a man in stoppage time and up a goal, you have to win that game. You just have to. I think even the Wolfsburg match to some extent, just because the second half we stopped them from scoring and looked like decent. And it was really just like 2 goals in the first 25 minutes that I thought were a little bit too easy. And that was kind of it. Or even you could even say the last match against Arminia Bielefeld, just because that is, I think you would argue, the lowest quality of opponent that we faced. And we just looked like so bereft of anything in that game. Just 90 minutes of very little football whatsoever. And so it's kind of like, I mean, not that any of us were particularly optimistic for that game and given everything that we had seen, but just like, if that's the kind of performance you're going to put against that quality of opponent, it's just like, what do you have to hold on to? So that was a disappointing one as well.
Yeah, and I think a good shot also would be obviously the 8-0 game against Bayern. Getting kicked in the teeth like that first game of the season is never a good one. But I think ultimately the one that really stuck out to me, kind of to Dave's point, is the Augsburg match. You know, that game we thought we finally won with everything that was going on in that match. And, you know, in stoppage time, they got that goal. That I probably felt the worst out of that game out of all the games. Even that 8-0 game, I thought that we had a whisper of a win there with seconds to go, and we give up that goal pretty much at the death. And they nearly won it also. You know, it wasn't for Fireman with a big save. So that's probably my most disappointing game of the season. It's a lot to choose from. Like Jack said, you could just pretty much name anyone on the calendar, and it's there outside of the Pokal matches. So. You know, I do want to talk about the best 11, but I think we should talk about some of the players this year and kind of rate them. Put up on the screen. Here we go. So we got a little grading system. Trying to make a little fun with this. This is strictly about the players' performances this season. It's been a difficult year. And so we got, you know, it's great, good, average, below average, and not applicable, meaning they didn't play enough that you could judge them on. Let's get the ball rolling, though, first with managers. So obviously the guy who kind of kick-started this all is Mr. David Wagner. What do we feel about him in terms of his coaching that we saw him for 2 games and obviously all last year? Jack, how about you?
As time goes on, I don't know what to make of any coach anymore. Like I said, like I just for a while I was kind of convinced it was coaching, and I'm not anymore. I think you have to put him at below average, just because of the winless streak that we went on, and then ultimately his inability to change anything over the preseason and start the season as badly as he did. I think you have to do below average. But at the same time, he had us playing great football, you know, in the Hinrunde last season, and we probably would give a very different answer then. And so it's like, you know, did he just forget how to coach over the Winterpause? I mean, probably not. That's not how that really works. So, yeah, it's for me, it's tough to rate any of the coaches, but yeah.
Below average. Cedric, would you agree with that below average, or how would you rate Wagner?
Yes, because I think especially the loss against Bayern with the highly goals, and I think under Baum we had seen a bit better team. So I think it's okay to give him the below average.
Dave, is this unanimous for you?
It's across the board, man. Yeah, I think looking at everyone's points so far, it's hard to rate him any higher than that. You know, I mean, he did what he did with our club. It was more of a short-term stint. I think we expected a little bit more after that Bayern match, and we just didn't see it. So I think it's fair to, even though the sample size is a little bit short for this season, I think below average is more than a fair enough rating.
Now, someone who had a little bit more of a sample size, Manuel Baum, 76 days in total, 10, 11 games. He had a little bit more opportunity to try to mold things the way we want, Dave. But still, it seemed like it wasn't enough for the board. How would you rate his overall his coaching? For the short time that we did see him.
This is interesting because he kind of falls between that like good and average, because it's not that I was ever completely sold on exactly what was being employed. Again, I don't think we had enough time for it to really get refined and kind of see, but also he never had a chance to really bring in any of his own players. But of course, he has his own managerial style and his own tactics. I just feel like we, to some degree, saw him trying to tinker with everything through match by match, and we never got to see really what he was. I'd throw him right there at the average. Okay. It's again, a little bit larger sample size, but I think structurally there's so many deficits with this club right now that it's hard to really pinpoint whether he was actually good or even below average. So I'd stick him right there in the middle.
I think I know what Jack's going to say, but Cedric, what are your thoughts on the way that Baum has managed so far? Oh, the games that he did manage for us, the 10 games or whatever. How do you feel he managed?
I think the team play better football, and I think we are nearer to a win than under Wagner, and I think average is a good option to find for him.
Jack, how about you?
I think I would want to put him in the good category, but based on the results, you can't, because if he's still not getting wins, I think it's hard to put him up there. So I would agree. I would go average. I think there was an improvement from David Wagner, and I liked how active he was on the sidelines, and I liked the kind of things he was saying and the kind of attitude he had. But ultimately, similar boat in terms of what we were coming away with.
Yeah, and I think I agree with all you guys. I think we did see an improvement with the team. However, the results didn't pan out as like we had hoped, and certainly that's why he's no longer in a position. So I agree with you guys on average for Manuel Baum. Are we in all agreement that Hoop Stevens did not have enough time to be graded, and he's a legend, so we shouldn't really grade him?
I think that's fair.
Sounds good to me. We don't want any hate mail, right? All right, so let's go to the goalkeepers. First, we'll start off the guy who's actually currently in net right now, Ralph Fährmann. How do we think he's done so far this year? Jack, we'll start with you. Obviously losing his position early and then getting it back, injuries, involved in that. What are your thoughts on Fährmann?
I would probably say good, I guess, unless I'm forgetting some massive howler that he's had. I think overall he's been fine, and I think most of the goals that we've conceded when he's been on the pitch haven't been his fault. If you wanted to say average, I wouldn't argue with it, but just because I feel like the goalkeeper play has been overall higher than the rest of the players, and I think we might have a lot in that average or below average grade. I'm just going to put Fährmann in good, so we have some representation in that category.
Okay, Dave, how about you?
I think that's a fair assessment that Jack brings up here. I mean, Fährmann, we know what he's capable of, and yes, he's been in net for a couple of these really bad performances from the club, but he can't stop everything. He's not expected to go from post to post, but he is a leader back there. But at the same time, it's individual decisions and that individual quality that I think has really made him look to a large degree worse than he actually is. So I'm right there. I think he's been good. I think he's been a spotlight for us of something that's he can serve as a leader for us. So I'm willing to go with Jack on that good. Yeah.
Cedric, how about you? You think good for him or average, great?
I'm also think good is a good category for Fährmann because he make good matches and maybe not the matches where he rescues us from a draw or from a bad result, but I think he make a good job.
Okay, I agree with that too. I think he's done a really good job so far this year. Here's an interesting one. I'm curious what everyone thinks. Frederic Renov. He obviously started majority of the games so far this season. He's come up with some great reaction saves. He's also given some maybe a howler here or there. But overall, what are your thoughts, Cedric? We're going to stay with you, Frederic Renov. What do you think?
For me, he is one of the only player for the great category, because he saved us a lot of goals or points maybe I think he was a good transfer, and he plays very good for us in before his injury.
Dave, would you agree with a great, or how would you rate him?
Yeah, I think he's been good. Again, he's definitely come up with some incredible saves for us. I think what his stats are, he's saved 31, and has a 14 goals against. Again, it's hard to rate ratio wise what that means in terms of how your defense and your midfields and everything's playing. But it's one of those where he's looked excellent for us, and I don't know if that is. I don't know if it's his own individual quality, if it's him coming up in big moments, or if it's just something we're trying to spotlight and think, man, he is the one who's making the highlights for us. So I think he's been good for us. I don't know if I'd go into the great category, but Cedric makes a lot of good points where he's been able to make some good quality saves and saved us quite a few times. I'd rate him good.
Good. Okay. So Jack, split the difference here. Would you say Renova has been great, good, average? What do you think?
If you want the tiebreaker, I'm going to go with Cedric on this one, just for a similar reason. I think it's one of the only players that you could, justifiably put in the great category. I haven't checked in a bit, but the last time I had checked, he was one of the league leaders in post-shot expected goals plus minus stat, which is a decent stat to look at. Not the end-all be-all for goalkeeping, obviously, but a good stat to look at to kind of try to determine how good the shot stopping is. And he was somebody that was, I think he was like second place after, could have been Neuer. I forget who was high up there. So I think similarly, I don't think a lot of the goals that have been scored when he's been in net have been his fault, but I think he's made more bigger saves than Fairman has and has done more to prevent a couple. And so that's why I would give him a little bit of a grade bump over Fairman. And I think it's interesting just because I was somewhat critical of this move when we brought him in on loan. Just because if we weren't going to do it permanently, I didn't understand what the point was as opposed to playing Schubert. But maybe they really actually had a read on how good this guy was, because I do think he's played significantly better than Schubert was playing at the time. So yeah, I've been pleased with him so far.
I think I would be a hypocrite if I didn't pick great for him, because I've been talking about how I thought he's been one of the best players for us this season. Making some big saves and timely saves. To Cedric's point, maybe saving us some points, a point here and there. I think he's been playing much better than I anticipated. Like Jack said, at first we questioned this move, but he's come up big, especially when Fairman's been injured, and he earned that spot to be between the six. I think the one thing that's different between him and Fairman is Fairman has that rallying experience that Renova doesn't have, just mostly because he hasn't been with the team. This Fairman has grew up with this team. So other than that, I think Renova has played excellent. Excellent. He's been great. He's been great for considering the conditions he's been in. So
you lose, Dave.
Did we lose, Dave?
Hey, that's 3 against 4. That's fine.
Sorry, Dave.
That's how football works.
Dave.
Right? Maybe I just had my eyes closed a couple times when he was playing great. Maybe those were the second halves I missed.
Michel Langer, 1 game. It's not enough to grade him. I thought he did good in the 1 game, but 1 game I don't know if is enough to really grade him.
Toss him in the not applicable category.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so now to speed this up a little bit, I'm gonna give each of you guys a player to go through and grade. That way we can get to this a little bit quicker and get to the best 11. So we'll start in defenders, obviously. Let's start with the right back here. We'll talk about Kilian Ludwig. We'll go with Jack on this one.
Ooh, I have to go below average.
Okay.
And I feel bad about that just because, once again, I feel terrible being critical of this kid. The only reason he's there is because of Manuel Baum and because our front office did virtually nothing to replace John Joe Kenny and Daniel Caligiuri in free agency. So not a position that this kid should probably be in, playing the number of minutes and getting the number of starting opportunities at right back. I don't think he was ready for this level. So I'd have to put him there, but I do that very sympathetically and with, an apology to him.
Yeah, he is. I don't know what we could have expected anything more out of him, really. Coming from Burnley and playing hardly any football, and then put him in the starting lineup automatically at 19 years old. It's difficult to do, no doubt about that. Let's go, Cedric. Ozan Kabak. What would you rate him this season?
I think I would rate him for average. I'm a bit disappointed of Kabak because he has a great first season with us, and he was a really great defender. But I think now he has a red card and injury, and after that the games wasn't so good like he playing the last season. So I expected more from Kabak.
So you said below average or average? I missed this. Sorry.
Average.
Average. Okay, very good. Dave, let's go with another defender, Matija Nastasic.
It's, you guys got to put me with that one. Yeah, no, I haven't been a fan of him. I know that there's plenty out there that like him. I don't think that he's really lived up to what he's capable of. I mean, still young, 27, Serbian international, 8 appearances for us. I'm just going to go below average. I don't think anything within our defensive line has really proven to do much more than that. It's just some of the poor decisions, some of the marking as the offensive players approach the box. It's just too far up the pitch, too out of position, too frequently for me.
Okay. I'm going to take the easy one, Timo Becker. Not enough games. We want to see more of him, but he's only played a couple games this year.
Put that man in the great category.
Yes. Oh, okay. Let's see. Ooh, Jack, Hamza Mendil.
I think you might have to do not applicable for that one too, because we really only saw him like the last couple games of the season. If anyone thinks that we can rate him, I just don't think we've had another, once again, enough of a sample size.
Yeah.
Somebody I wouldn't be opposed to seeing more of. I think we've seen enough from Ochipka this season. He puts in a shift, and that's about all you can say for the guy. He's not offering you anything going forward, and he's not even, I think, maybe the defender that he once was either. So, yeah, not applicable for Mendel, but hopefully he gets into the mix a little bit more.
Okay. Cedric, how about Bastian Ochipka?
For me, below average, especially when we put there, for example, Nastasic in, because for me, he's not a defender on the left back anymore who can play Bundesliga or the level of the Bundesliga. Often he don't get the ball control after a high ball, and we lose then the ball. It goes out or something like that. And maybe he's a bit of a quick defender, but on the mind he isn't very quick, and he needs a lot to go with the ball or to make something for the front. I see poorly offensive thing from Ochipka.
Yeah, that's a good shot there. Someone I almost forgot about, Dave, Salif Sane. How would you rate Salif?
Yeah, someone that we kind of forget about, just sort of the quiet guy, sort of maneuvering that center of the box. Average for me. Obviously, so some lapse in judgment throughout the year, but that can be made case for everybody. I haven't seen too much from him. I know that Naldo is on that coaching bench and can hopefully do some things with him. But yeah, as far as where we saw him play last season versus where he's at now, yeah, just very average for me this year.
All right, next one for me is going to be Benjamin Stambouli. As much I love the guy, but I think what we've seen this year has left us much to be desired. A lot of times defensively, either giving up a penalty or just looked lost back there. I think he's looked better when he's put in the midfield, and the last game, the last couple of games we've seen him in midfield, he performed a lot better, I thought. But ultimately, how he's been rated defensively, I think he's been below average. If I'm going to rate him, so let's see. Jack, you get Malik Thiaw.
I'm going to say average. If you wanted to say good, I would allow it. I just think it's really difficult to rate anybody that's been involved in the back line that highly at this point. But I do think overall, I'd say there's been less glaring moments where he's been in the wrong. He's had a couple, but and I think there's a chance he could be a big contributor for us in the second half of the season. So I'd put him in average.
Diggler says Sane's horrible most of the time. Yeah, I mean he's had better years for sure. I think all the players have had better years. That's for sure. Cedric, Nabil Bentaleb.
Yeah, for me, he's also below average. I mean, he makes some things on the pitch that looks very beautiful, but the impact for the game isn't always so good. And because of the disaster after his suspension, I think we have to put him on this category.
Okay, fair shout there. Dave, how about Nassim Bouyelab?
I've liked him this year. As Cedric kind of hinted at it at the beginning of the show, he's been a nice injection. He's definitely been a player that's quick, speedy. He can find his way around the box. I believe he even netted for us as well, which was a nice little run from him. I would throw him in the average category. It's definitely someone I want to see more consistently, and someone that I definitely think can be a contributor long term for this team, especially through the rest of the season. So I've liked what I've seen from him, albeit a bit limited with only 6 appearances. But at the same time, I think he's proven himself as like Jack said, someone that can put in a shift, but is actually making some progress in trying to find those gaps within the defense to make things happen.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. For me, I'm gonna take Chan Bazwan. Again, not enough sample size with him. It just as much as we want to see him and the glimpses that we've seen him, he's looked pretty decent. He looks like he could be a starting 11 player, no doubt about it, with his reaction time, his vision, and all that stuff. We haven't seen him enough, honestly, unfortunately. So I think I'm gonna put him in the not applicable category. Someone who we've seen a lot of and not necessarily performing to where we'd like, Jack. You get Amin Harit.
Ooh, that's tough. I have to go below average, especially given what we know that he's capable of. Because I think there's very few people that would disagree with at their actual best, most in form. Harit's probably the best, most talented player on that team. And given what he's brought to the table overall, I have to go below average. But I hope that changes in the second half of the season.
No, I hope so too. I mean, we need him. We need Sardar. We need all the guys really to step up. And someone who he probably has the most talent outside of Bentaleb. And we've seen him in the past. We know what he's capable of, and he needs to find a way to get back to that level, as hard as it may seem. Chalanolu has not been played, so we're gonna skip him.
The other thing I'll say real quick is technically Bozdogan does have more appearances than Bouyelab. He might not have more minutes.
Okay.
I'm just going to mention that. So,
well, then
that's good.
Well, then I'm going to put him the average. Then how about that?
That's fine.
How you like them apples, huh?
There you go.
Cedric, you get Omar Mascarell.
It's very hard to rank Mascarell because I'm thinking he has some games on below average and some games with average or maybe with good. I think average is a good category for him because I'm disappointed on him because I thought he can be the leader on the midfield, but I don't think that he is really the leader on this team.
Yeah, no, I agree about that. There's some games, especially like recently, like he made some brilliant passes in the games, and I thought he played very well. But other times, like you mentioned, he's below average. So I think having him as average is a pretty good category there. Dave, how about Alessandro Schoff?
Schoff, let's see, what's close to 10 appearances for us. I kind of go back and forth with him because when he's on there, he's not the best. You can kind of see a dip in form and a dip in quality. He does give us a bit of a, kind of something off the bench for at least for some creativity. He's still limited on his shooting this year. I expect a little bit more from him, being a little bit more aggressive around the net. Yeah, it's right there between like I don't know, average and below average for me. It's not something that he's particularly made that much impact while I'm watching him, and I think that's why I want to go kind of below average. And unless you guys have seen something I haven't, he's just not someone that continually just pops off the screen at me, or something that I'm looking for. So
no one would take it away from you. Considering the run we're on, I mean, the fact that we have some guys that are both above average or above, then that's even more surprising. So I don't think anyone's going to hold that against you, for sure. Let's see. All right, next one on the list is we're going to go with I guess Swat Serdar apparently. So Swat Serdar, I think we've seen last year what he's capable of. Kind of like Harit, we thought that he could have done so much better for us. He could have been really having a great season like he did at times last year. But I think this year he's fallen out of games at times. He's still one of the more consistent guys, and we saw at the goal that he did against what he's capable of. I'm going to give him an average. I'm probably going to get hate for this, but I'm going to give him an average. Maybe just because I like the guy too much. I don't know, but he has one of the most quality on the team, and he's still showing it. He's been better in the last handful of games. So maybe it's because the quality opponent. I don't know, but I'm going to give him a average rating. Jack, you get Mr. Hoppy. Hop.
I'm going to go not applicable for him either. I don't think we've seen enough out of him. What does he have? Like 3 appearances maybe at this point? Yeah. 2 of them later cameos.
Yeah.
What I will say is I don't think he's been significantly worse than anybody else that's been up there for the most part. I mean, like, was he worse than Ibisevic? Was he? I mean, I don't know. I mean, definitely need to see more of him. And if he gets like another couple cameos and he's kind of playing similarly, maybe we won't see a whole lot of him after that. And probably another guy that's getting an opportunity more because of necessity rather than merit. But obviously I'm gonna root for the American to break through, and I do think there've been a couple things in terms of his like off the ball movement and stuff that have been decent. So hopefully he can jump up into the average or good category maybe with enough time on the pitch in the second half of the season.
All right, Cedric, we're gonna go controversial here. We're gonna go with Vedad Ibisevic. What do you rate him? The short time we had him.
Yeah. Maybe I put him also in the last category because we haven't seen so much from him. I think he had a good game on the Pokal, and the Bundesliga matches aren't very strong from him.
Yeah, the few times we did see him was like the test spiels and stuff like that, where he looked, good when he was out there. But in terms of regular games, he didn't have many opportunities. Many times we saw him outside of substitute here and there. So, all right, I know probably Jack wants to get Katucu, but since he's the father of the movement, we're gonna have to give this one Dave Lee. Dave, how do you rate Ahmed Katucu? And make sure you choose your words wisely.
I know. I was expecting Jack to take this one just over. Yeah, absolutely. Is there one above great?
Yes, God. No, I'm just kidding.
For him, but it's been an interesting year for Katucu, right? All of his appearances have been sub appearances, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Very limited on his shooting capacity as far as shots on net. Again, someone who can sort of, I hate to make the Harit comparison, but someone who can actually make some difference in the midfield and draw some attention towards him. For me, I'm drawing a blank on sort of how he should fit in, because he's been average for us, but I don't know if we've seen enough for him to. And feel free to jump in here, Jack, if you have any thoughts as the here.
Just protect my boy. No, what I'll say is he's played 87 minutes in the first half of the season.
Right.
So I think he's going to be not applicable. And once again, you have to ask why.
Yeah.
He's played 87 minutes. I don't. And you know what? Time will probably prove me wrong on this guy. And I'm not trying to say he's the second coming, but just given how consistently awful we are up front, I find it so hard to believe that he isn't a better option than some of the guys and shouldn't be worthy of at least, 45 minutes on a fairly regular basis,
Yeah, I'm shadowing Jack. I didn't realize he played that little. I know he had made 4 appearances.
But 4 appearances for like 87 minutes total, I think.
He comes on for like a minute here, 5 minutes there. I mean,
yeah, I did forget about his limited minutes. So with Jack, I mean, I think when he's on, you can see. But again, I think the bigger question is why isn't he finding more time on the pitch?
I mean, Matthew Hoppe has literally played more minutes, I think, than Katucu has this season, which is insane to me. But
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that is crazy when you think about it like that. And we don't know what's going on in the training, but it's hard to imagine that he's doing that badly in training that he doesn't get a chance at a run, here and there. So that's crazy. Let's see. Next one. I think it's Robbie Matondo. I'm gonna call Robbie Matondo. How about that? Robbie Matondo. I don't even know if he's played enough either. I mean, we saw him obviously against Dortmund. and some other games. But the times that I look at it here, he's had quite a few minutes. So because of that, I'm gonna put below average in. Because if obviously I can't remember him as well as I want to, he's obviously not doing as well as we'd hope, and obviously he's underperformed since we've gotten him. Obviously, all this hype that we heard from him when we got him from Manchester City, maybe just because it's Manchester City. He's got the pace, no doubt about that. He's obviously a favorite when we play against Dortmund because of his pace, but he hasn't done much with it. And the time that he does get the opportunity to shoot, he has missed it this season. So he's been very underwhelming for me, and the fact that he's played as much as he has and I didn't realize it, I'm going to give him below average. So next one, Jack, you are going to get Gonzalo Paciencia. It's a hard one.
You had to give me him too.
I did.
I feel like I'm a little bit out of step with the rest of the fan base when it comes to him. My gut would say average. If you guys want to put him in the good category, if that's where you guys are more leaning to, I wouldn't argue with you. But that's kind of how I'm feeling. I just feel like he hasn't been as effective as he might have been.
Yeah.
But is still a slight step above a lot of what else was going on the pitch prior to his injury. So that's kind of what I would do. If you guys disagree, jump in.
I agree with that. I think he's had glimpses of where he's been really good, but he's also has glimpses where he's been non-existent in the games the few times that we've seen him. So I like that. I like the average shout out there. And also Diggler says we've been giving Katucha too much praise and we've messed with his head, he thinks. Okay, let's see. Rounding this out, looks like Cedric, you get Skripski.
For me, he's between average and below average.
Okay.
Some games he has a little impact of the game. I think he make assists on the Mainz game with the own goal, the cross. When I look the players on the below average, I would maybe give him the average category.
Okay. So it's a little bit better than the guys in the below average category. Okay. Yeah. That's fair enough reason. No, fair enough reason. Dave, Benito Raman.
Ramon, I like what Ramon brings to the pitch. I really think that sort of his energy and his passion. I mean, he's definitely been starting 12 games, 5 as a sub, right up there as far as maybe he is the leader in the team in shots. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it seems like he's one who's willing to show up regardless of the situation, regardless of the opponent, and play his game. I'd put him in the good category. I've really enjoyed watching him this year and what his contributions are. You guys can debate me that way, whether you think he falls below that, but he's someone, at least when I see his name on that lineup, that I'm like, okay, at least we have some quality, potential quality up there. I'm not saying, of course, he's ringing things, scoring, goals and rockets here and there, but at the same time, I think he gives us a little bit more than any of our other strikers at this point.
That's a fair shout there. I'm going to go ahead and put Gianluca Skyler as NA because we barely seen him, I think, so just a few minutes in the one game that Matthew Hoppe started in that game. So, Jack, you get to round this out with Mark Uth.
I will go great just because of I feel like like I said, the leadership qualities that he's demonstrated. I don't necessarily think his play's been great. I'd probably say maybe good more, but like I don't know.
Considering your expectations ahead of the season, I think above expectations for you. Remember?
Yeah, probably. I would say so. Do you guys have strong feelings on this one way or the other? No. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll go great then, but it's really, like I said, it's hard to put anybody in the great or even good categories for the most part this season.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. I was also between great and good. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, considering that he's been that leader that's kind of shouldered a lot of the burden. He's trying to do so much for the club while he's out there. Whereas maybe his performance on the field hasn't been great. I think just generally for the club, he has been great for the players to be out there. So yeah, I'm fine with that. Again, it's hard to balance between these good and greats, and especially we're not seeing the generally high production as far as goals or assists coming from these players. But there's a lot more to the game than just that. And I think a veteran, locker room presence, those kind of things go a long way for him.
All right, Cedric, do you agree with that too?
I would give him the good category, but I understand to give him the great category. For me, he's the only player who can create some moments in the midfield where he makes some creativity to get chances or goals or assists he can make. For the great category, maybe he make less scores, but I'm good with the great category also because he was one of the best players of the team.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. I think what he's brought. He's obviously shown the leadership qualities as well that Jack mentioned. And it goes a long way too, because a lot of that this season we've been missing. To Digler's point, Benito Ramon's one of the few guys who've been fighting tooth and nail every game. We've seen a lot of hustle from him. So we ended up rounding it out with two guys in the great category, Ut and Renov. In the good category, another two guys, Benito Ramon and Ralph Fairman. Average, we had Kabak, Sane, Tiao, Buyeleb, Bazduan, Mascarel, Serdar, Paciencia, and Skripski, and then everybody else either not applicable or below average. So it's interesting there. So based off of that, gentlemen, who would your starting 11 be? I'm going to give each. I'll go with the goaltender. Jack will give you the defense. Cedric will give you the midfield, and Dave will give you the attack. So in goal, I'm going to go ahead and say, oh man, that's difficult. Shoot, why do I do that? Based off what we need right now, I think we need leadership more than anything else. And as much I think Renov has been great this season, I think Fairman brings that extra leadership that we need at the moment. So I'm going to put him in goal for me. Jack, who do you have in defense?
At this point, and this might be kind of a throw you guys for a whirlwind, but I think at this point I would go with maybe a back four of Malik Chow at left back. Maybe kind of playing like a, Hevedez in the World Cup for Germany kind of role there. I don't know. With alongside Kabak and Salif Sane, and then maybe Stambouli at right back. I think he's been awful when he's played in center back. I think if we could potentially play a system where in possession we become a back three and Stambouli is able to get up further on the right-hand side to influence the passing and combine, I think that could be a good role for him as long as we don't get horribly exposed. I think it'd be situational in terms of whether or not we have opposition on like the left wing that's really going to be aggressive down there where you'd have to stay back more. But situationally, I think that could be a back four that could work.
Sorry, just read the comments. Digler says that we have 13 players that are average or above. That would be great for a team despite the Bundesliga. Oh my goodness. Anyway, Cedric, what does your midfield look like?
Are we playing with 5 on the midfield or with 4?
Yeah, it kind of depends. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can ignore my back four. Do it.
So I'm playing with Mascarel on defense midfield. Next behind him is Serdar. And I'm playing with Harit and with Bougelab on the other positions on the midfield.
Okay. All right. And then Dave, round out our starting 11.
Well, I got the easy one. Obviously, you got to take Ut up front. And if I guess a toss up between. I mean, if we're playing with the two up top, I take Ramon over Paciencia at this point. Him off the bench. That
too. Jack, I like you shut about Stambouli at right back or right wing. Because we saw it the last game, one of the last games, he had that nice assist where he was more of a midfielder, I guess, in that role. But if he's up there attacking, he could convert into that midfield mentality and set people up. So I like that shout. Are we good? Are we comfortable with this starting 11, 12, whatever guys we had on the pitch?
Yeah, one thing I would just mention in terms of going forward tactically, I think it'd be interesting to experiment with like double 10s at some point, like behind Markut as like a set, like maybe I don't know, maybe do like Harit and Katuchu behind Markut or something like that, or like Harit and like Bozduan, or even Harit and Serdar potentially. What could be interesting because I'm becoming like less a fan of Mascarel as time goes on. I think there's games where he's steady and he's fine. I just don't think his upside is high enough to keep justifying a place in the lineup consistently when you have higher upside guys like Serdar and Harit. And there's a lot of mouths to feed in that way. But I don't know. I mean, if you guys disagree with that, that's fine. But I would just prefer to find a way to get like a lot of like Bozduan and those kind of guys on the field more often.
Okay, cool. No, that's cool.
Yeah, I think I'd love to see like a Bozdogan and a Boujaleb more frequently.
Boujaleb could be in that position too. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mascarell, I think we had a comment. It's not worthy of a captainship. For this club, and to me, it always seems like a Serdar or someone else is in the mix when it comes to talking to the referee or in the middle of players. Mascarell always seems to be sort of just on the peripheral there. But yeah, I think you're right. I think an upside on some other players. But how does that formation of taking Mascarell out? Who do you put in that place? Is that defensive front? But yeah, who knows what Christian Gross is going to be employing here, but it'd be interesting, as you said, to do with some double tens and sort of mix up how we go from offense to defense and vice versa.
I'll leave you this little nugget before we go. Christian Gross, he likes to play in a 4-2-3-1. Will he use that? We'll find out. But that's just a little nugget for all you guys. Anything you guys want to talk about before we wrap this up? Are we good? It's only been 13 games, 14 games, so it's not much really, I guess, to talk about, I guess. So a good place to wrap up, I think. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you sign up for the Schalke US newsletter. Not only are you going to get info on the club, but you're also going to get the latest on the local fan clubs across North America and even about our podcast. So make sure you submit your email address and you'll get them once a month, like I said. Keep tuning in each week as we bring you the latest from the Royal Blues. If there are any topics you would like us to discuss, just shoot us a tweet at SchalkeMerica. We'd like to give a special shout out to our guests, Dave and Cedric. Dave, let's let you go first. You get a chance to plug away. Thank you for coming on, and the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, Richard, always great to see you guys again. Cedric, great to meet you. Thanks for your contributions. I'll be checking out more of what you're doing over there on YouTube, and good job on the last episode as well. But yeah, Dave Lee, you can find me over on social media at AO Dave Lee. You can find me both on Twitter and Instagram at that. Mostly tweeting about football, whether it's Schalke, some domestic leagues here, whether it's Southampton, whatever it may be. But yeah, love for anybody to follow. I'll give you a follow back. Always love to talk about the club.
Oh, excellent, Dave. And Cedric, how about you? Your chance to plug away your YouTube, everything, anything you want.
Thank you for being at the show again, and you can check me out on YouTube, Cedric Zelmat, Schalke 04, almost daily content about Schalke.
Yeah, it's very impressive compared to what we can do, Jack. He's cranking them out. Very, very impressive. Make sure you follow both these gentlemen here. Jack, where can our listeners follow you?
Yeah, once again, just thank you to Cedric and Dave. Cedric for holding it down in my absence the previous episode, and then for joining us again. And then Dave, of course, one of the OG guests on the SchalkeMerica podcast. Good to be with you again. You can find me at JMMangan, JMMangan on Twitter.
Ah, very good. Thank you, gentlemen, all you gentlemen. If I don't talk to you again, Happy New Year's to all of you. Happy New Year's to everyone who's listening in. As always, you can follow me at R_KHARMAN. Until the next pod comes, my friends, stay ready, and we'll be with you soon. Tschüss.